All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I'm all set. I'm ready to go today. I got my orange soda here. I'm chilling, drinking it. Letting the caffeine hit me. Actually, I don't even know if this has caffeine, to be honest. Sugar, yeah, caffeine free. So I'm waiting for the sugar to hit me. And it will, but we got a lot to talk about today. So I'm going to lead in just a second with more absolutely insane genocidal rhetoric. This time coming from a U.S. politician. We will get to a new bombshell report about how Trump might owe another 100 million DZACs. 100 million. Man, when all's said and done, he's going to owe like $1 billion. I mean, we're already over $500 million in terms of what he owes. Marjorie Taylor Greene declares war on Fox News. She's definitely punching above her weight. Some Democratic Party elites are absolutely panicking behind the scenes. I have a great video of that. Dave Rubin keeps humiliating himself. And later on, man, you guys are not going to want to miss this story. There's a club of dudes who like to castrate themselves. And then they eat their own balls, bro. What are we talking about here? What the fuck? All right. I'll save it for later. So let's kick it off with this. And everybody knows the deal. Do me a big favor. Subscribe to the channel. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Costs you absolutely nothing. And thank you to everybody who supports the show on Patreon. That link's below, or tips with the thanks button on YouTube. Remember, I never talk to an advertiser. You guys help fund this show from the ground up, and I'm deeply, deeply appreciative over that. Okay, so Lindsey Graham went on one of the Sunday shows, and I mean, I can't believe that this sort of stuff is just casually said. Like, he doesn't think anything of this. He thinks this is just like a nonchalant, this is just a random Tuesday with a normal point, right? Look at this, bro.
When we were faced with destruction as a nation after Pearl Harbor, fighting the Germans and the Japanese, we decided to end the war by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear weapons. That was the right decision. Give Israel the bombs they need to end the war they can't afford to lose, and work with them to minimize casualties. So, can I say this? Why is it okay for America to drop 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end their existential threat war? Why was it okay for us to do that? I thought it was okay. To Israel, do whatever you have to do to survive as a Jewish state.
I mean, that's not subtle. That's not subtle. He's saying, yeah, nuke Gaza. Go for it. Nuke Gaza. We should give them the weapons they need, and they should do whatever they can in order to remain a Jewish state. And he's bringing up, hey, we were able to nuke people. Why can't they nuke people? All right, so first of all, everybody do yourself a favor. Go watch the Sean Jen video on the nuking of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It is so well researched. It's amazing. And he breaks it all down in 1,000 ways. But the bottom line is, the war was already over. We had already won the war. The reason that we nuked Japan was to send a message to the Soviet Union that, hey, we're the biggest, baddest dude on the block now. We run shit. We're the world superpower. So your ass better fall in line. Your ass better not fuck with us. That was the point. It was a flex. It was a flex that killed hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. So first of all, it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay to do that. Second of all, we now have a more robust system of international rules and laws. And everybody acknowledges, hey, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we don't go by the law of the jungle anymore. Everybody acknowledges we shouldn't go by the law of the jungle, and might makes right. And so we developed this intricate, complex system of international laws and justice. And he's like, well, why don't we just go back to what we were doing, where people were just the most grotesque, brutal assholes you could ever imagine? And he's, look, I was going to say it's one thing if one random idiot says this, right? It's another thing when now we have a number of instances. So a congressman in the U.S., remember this? Said bomb Gaza like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Remember that? This was a different congressperson. We also have an Israeli politician. He called for nuking Gaza. Now, he was suspended, but then he was immediately brought back. So the idea, oh yeah, we're really cracking down. No, you're not. He came right back in. So stop and think about it. We have 3 different instances of politicians in the U.S. and Israel saying to nuke Gaza. I think there's even another one from Israel. And then if I'm not mistaken, I think Lindsey Graham also implied it again previously. So this idea keeps coming up. What's terrifying is that you all know in the actual war cabinet meetings that they're having in Israel, you all know they talked about this. They talked about this. And it seems like to this point, what they settled on was instead of dropping one big ass nuke and killing them all, why don't we just slowly, in a drip, drip, drip fashion, kill them? And that's why we have 43,000 dead Palestinians now, about 16,000 dead kids, over 10,000 dead women. You have 2 million Gazans homeless out of 2.3 million. Hundreds of thousands of homes destroyed. Virtually all of North Gaza is wiped off the map. UN buildings bombed, hospitals bombed, schools bombed. They decided, basically, let's nuke them by another name. Let's nuke them with a different tactic. It's a nuke that is going to require months and months and months of sustained bombing. And that's what they decided on. But they really just come out and say this, man. It's 2024. They just come out and say, yeah, nuke them. And Lindsey Graham is letting you know, if you guys do it, I'll defend you. I'll defend you. I'll say they had it coming. I'll say they did it for justice. They did it for the right reasons. I mean, I can't imagine this kind of depravity. By the way, this was so depraved. Hamas released a statement and you made them sound reasonable. The shocking remarks made by American Senator Lindsey Graham suggesting that the fascist Israeli occupation should bomb Gaza with a nuclear bomb revealed a profound moral decay he has descended to and the mentality of genocide and colonization embedded in him and in other segments of the political elite in the United States. When you guys are so extreme and insane that you make Hamas say something reasonable, because they've also killed civilians, and that's horrible. That's terrorism. But let's call a spade a spade. It's also terrorism when Israel does it, and they've killed way more civilians, both as a raw number and a percentage, and you have people like Lindsey Graham begging Israel to nuke Gaza. Israeli politicians saying we should nuke Gaza. And then you still have people out there who are dumb enough to deny what we're witnessing. Shit, even CNN released that video explaining in detail about how Israel now has concentration camps. And the pictures coming out of there look exactly like Nazi German stuff. We covered the story of the guy in the West Bank in his own bakery. He got locked in there and the IDF threw in gas and gassed him to death. We're checking every box, dog. We are checking every box here. I can't even tell you the number of times we've seen the argument made, hey, why don't we go back to the bad old days? Why don't we go back to a time when there wasn't as many rules and laws on the books internationally? So many people are making that argument, and they think that's a good argument. And they also think it's self-evident that, well, of course the U.S. should have nuked hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians in Japan, including many women and children. Why would you think that? Anybody who's familiar with the ins and outs and the specifics of the time knows the war was already over. We shouldn't have done that. That was a massive, massive war crime. So, look, I think this video right here crystallizes the mindset of the rules and the laws don't apply to us. We're the good guys. When we do bad things, it's okay because it's with good intentions and for a good purpose. But they're even willing to stretch that to the absurd conclusion of it wouldn't even matter if us or our allies nuked somebody because we're still the good guys. Really? So then what does it take to be called a bad guy? If nuking millions of people, innocent people, doesn't count you as a bad guy, what's a bad guy? There's 30,000 Hamas members. There's 2.3 million people in Gaza, or at least there were. So then what would a bad guy be? Bad guy could only be our enemies, according to these idiots. Can only be our enemies. Our allies are never the bad guy. And that's how we get to a place where the U.S. arms and funds 73% of the world's dictatorships. And Lindsey Graham sees nothing wrong with that, and he'll still go out there and pretend like we push democracy and freedom around the world. It's beyond laughable, man. I don't know how this stuff's even allowed to be said, right? You want to talk about the few exceptions to free speech? Well, one of those would be a direct threat of violence. He's telling Israel, nuke Gaza. How is that not the most direct threat of violence we've ever seen? Wild, bro. Wild. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.